here. Let's go back to the South. We got that Yale plus 7.5 play. Chip, this is a play I like, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm as sophisticated in the ball knowing when it comes to college basketball as you or Tom Casale, but I watch a lot of Big East basketball. And Tom will tell you, I know we'll talk about it probably later in the show. Big East, not a very good conference. It's probably why Tom's a little down on St. John's in terms of making it through the bracket. But I think Marquette is like a very average team. You like New Mexico to cover.
Yeah, I do. I think that this is going to be a spot where the Lobos are going to really start to expose some of the roster and lineup flaws that we have seen with Marquette all throughout the second half of the season. Now, this is like individually, you can look at Cam Jones or Stevie Mitchell, and you can see like in the Xavier game when everything's going well, wow, this team really is one of the best teams in the conference. But they were kind of the litmus test of the conference. If you were not a tournament team, Marquette was able to beat you. If you were a tournament team, Marquette, especially once we got into mid to late January and beyond, just didn't look all that impressive. And so against a New Mexico team that really asserted itself as one of the better squads there in the Mountain West, it feels like that group took a step forward. And so you get a little bit of transfer talent. We know what Richard Pitino's style is going to be. And with Donovan Dent, I think that you've got the kind of guard play that you would need to win this game. And when I'm looking at some of these first round games, then I'm thinking about not just my bracket, but the spread. I try to make sure those are two different exercises. This is important, okay? Fill out your bracket, do your game theory, but that doesn't mean it has to necessarily be in line with what you're doing with your best bets and your wagers. However, this is a spot where I think New Mexico wins the game. If you're going to give me 3.5, gobble, 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 I'll take all those points. And so give me the Lobos, plus the 3.5 against the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, I'll take the 3.5 too. I mean, I love the minus 105. I got to ask, because I heard this on HQ. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Tim Doyle. I can't remember, but this is Rick Pitino's son, correct? Over at New Mexico coaching?
Yes.
Is this not, and again, I'm not, this is not my idea. I didn't come up with this, but I'm sure people are talking about it. Competitive advantage. You've got Rick Pitino, who coaches in the Big East. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's been playing Marquette. Don't you think this is, Tom, I'm going to go to you first on this. Is this a competitive advantage for New Mexico?
Yeah, I think so. I think he can share tendencies and give him a little bit of an insight on what isn't a common opponent. Like those common opponent things really matter. Like if Tennessee has to play Kentucky in the Sweet 16, they played twice and Kentucky won both games. So it matters. And I think giving him those scouting reports on, this is the guy you got to really watch. This guy only goes to his left. Those help in a one and out situation. So sure, yeah, I think that's a competitive advantage.
Chip, did this factor in at all, even 5% to your cap of this game?
Not for mine. But it is not wrong. And I think it is going to be arguably more important for some of these second round games. Mm-hmm. Like if you want to be looking at a scout advantage, that's where you want to know that like they can pick up the phone. Cause that's not just going to be Rick Pitino and Richard. This is going to be any of these guys that have worked together. I mean, I know we get it in college football all the time. The defensive coordinator from one school calls this other staff to tell them everything that they saw, everything that they did. Like, that is very, very much a part of it. So I also think Richard Pitino is a good coach. Like Rick might be able to give him something, but I guarantee you that Richard knows his dad's team, and he was able to watch. I bet he put those games on for the game film to be able to figure out what to study and what to put in. So yeah, I think that New Mexico has been more consistently good than Marquette, and so for that reason, I love getting the 3.5.
Okay, Tom, you have two bets in the South region. One of them we talked about on yesterday's show to some degree, so I want you to touch on that, and then the Iowa State one. But before we get there, just real quick, some good stuff happening in the chat. I'm trying to catch up on the chat, by the way, everybody. Joe Neuenfeld at 12:41 said, I have under 7.5 minutes for Mike showing up. Of course, talking about Mike McClure. That line from when he put it out there would make 12:49 basically the number there. So we're looking for Mike to show up. If Joe hits his under, it's going to be it can't hit 1250. Let's put it that way. That's when the over comes in. And then Jen M says, I have M2 not wearing hats. So we've got a little parlay action with the under of 1249, or I should say under 1250, and Mike McClure not wearing a hat. I think that pays like plus 220. Not bad. Just throwing it out there. Okay, speaking of not bad, Tom, you're pretty good at this betting thing. You like Louisville, you like Iowa State. Touch on Louisville, because I know you've kind of already talked about that one, but then talk to me about Iowa State laying the big number.
Yeah, listen, I also like both plays that Chip and Larry gave out as well. I was waiting for maybe Georgia to go up a little bit again. My long history with Gonzaga since last April, and they're the most overvalued team in the country. They just are. And Georgia's a team I really like. And I think Chip's right. I think New Mexico is going to win that game outright. So I like both of those plays. Listen, I took Arkansas right away. That was another team. Arkansas, Missouri, two teams I had written down. I thought if they had the right matchup, their styles could bother an opponent. I didn't love Missouri's draw because Drake can slow them down, especially if they get a lead. I did like Arkansas's draw. I think they can turn Creighton over. The market has been higher on Creighton than me all year. So maybe I'm wrong here. But I just think they've lived off of – when you say a conference is bad, it's the middle to bottom tier. That's what we're talking about. And the Big East is terrible. Those teams are awful. Seton Hall, Georgetown, apologies. They're next year. They make the tournament next year. They'll make the tournament next year.
Fair enough.
Providence, those teams are terrible. And so I think you get wins over bad teams, and it makes your overall record look better than it is. Now, say the same thing about Louisville. They played in the ACC. I get it. They've lost twice since December 14th. That's pretty impressive. I mean, and one of those losses was to Duke last week. So I just think the matchup is good there, and I like Louisville. In the other game,
Mike McClure
We're
on
incepting
HQ.
Mike McClure into the stream.
Uh-oh, Joe. This isn't looking good for you. You got about 90 seconds. He's got to get off of that and get on to this. Over looking very strong. That line is moving. Go ahead. Finish your thoughts.
Sorry, Tom.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just going to say, Keyshawn Gilbert's not going to play for Iowa State, and that will be felt at some point. I don't know if it's this game against Lipscomb. Iowa State struggles to score against good defensive teams. Your Houstons, your Michigan States, your St. John's. Lipscomb is going to be no problem for them, even without one of their best players. And where Lipscomb's going to come into an issue here is they shoot the ball well, but they're not used to seeing Iowa State's guards and defense up in their face. And this just sets up, I actually kind of liked Lipscomb a little bit if they had a better draw. This isn't the draw. I think Iowa State pulls away here and wins by 20 plus in the second half.
Yeah, this line has gone from 13.5 to 14.5. It sounds like you're okay with the 14.5 here.
That's the ceiling.
Yeah, okay.
14.5. Don't go any higher than that.
One thing I'll say about Iowa State is, I liked BYU in that conference tournament game, just last week. And Iowa State stuck with them. I mean, and they didn't have Lipsy, and I guess they didn't have Keyshawn Gilbert, I'm guessing, in that one. And they stuck with them. So I was pretty impressed with them having, basically two men down here. So we're going to think Iowa State runs